I
Could
do
have
have
been.
I do have a picture, and I don't know if you saw it. I put it on Facebook, and it was the pole mounted gun at the top of the hill. Now, was that all the SMI parts and pieces, or was that something that you Lloyd put together as well?
No, that was all SMI.
Okay. Did you ever see that sled that Lloyd had fabricated that he put the SMI gun on? I put a picture of that on Facebook as well.
Only in the pictures that you posted on Facebook that I see that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Murray um, didn't really have much recollection either. And I think Murray said the other challenge with that design was it was easy to kind of get the sled buried, and it wasn't as easy to move around as I guess maybe they thought it was going to be in the
Right.
concept. But
Yeah,
so
no, that was I never saw that. So I know that Lloyd was always thinking.
yeah,
So
yeah. So on that west side, did you have any hydrants, or did you have to run hoses like across Murray's run?
I don't remember hydrants on that side. No, I
Yeah.
think we ran it all with hoses. I think we had an electrical line over there though.
Okay. Yeah, I did see some electric by that one pole. Actually, I think Murray found it when we were looking at the ski runner, and then that's kind of when we were like, oh, they must have had a pole mounted gun there. So that's interesting.
The only expansion to the snowmaking system that we made after I started there, when we put the third T-bar up, I don't know if it was the same year or the next year, we brought water and power over to the bottom of the Caribou at about the point where it met with the racing run.
Okay. For putting some snow down in that general
Putting
area.
snow down in that area, yeah. I think we might have gone up one, there might have been two hydrants that we put along the bottom of the Caribou so we could get
Yeah.
some snow onto the Wildcat as well.
Yeah. I find it kind of interesting. Obviously, when I say the landowner spent some money. Actually, I shouldn't say it. I don't know who did it, but obviously where the chalet was, somebody came in and, removed and moved some terrain around to kind of, whatever, make it look better. And obviously all the lifts removed, like so much effort was put into, I think Murray was saying that, all that lift equipment was sold. Um, but I just found it fascinating when I was walking across the Bruce Trail, like all the remnants of the hydrants, like they literally just ripped them out of the ground, like the cap and then the 6 foot piece of pipe, going down to the valve or whatever. And I never quite understood that. It's like, what was the purpose of yanking them out of the ground then just kind of leaving them, lay there? It's like if I had a pickup truck, I'd probably bring one of those home with me. But it's like I just found that was kind of interesting that those were left on the ground.
Yeah, but just the pipes, right? I think the valves are gone.
Yeah, I think Murray was looking at the valves, and yeah, I think somebody scavenged everything that was worthwhile.
Yeah, see, the valves were brass
Yeah,
or bronze and probably had some scrap value that the steel pipes wouldn't have
yeah,
had at that time where
yeah.
you know if
If I
people saw those steel pipes today, they'd take them too. So
yeah, I was gonna say if I lived closer and had a pickup truck, I'd volunteer to take that off their hands from them. Let's see here. What else did I have? That was kind of follow-up questions. Oh, I think that was. I'm not sure. I think the only last question I had is, and we may have covered this before, but the with the snow making of what runs you could make snow on. So it was basically Murray's Run, the Orchard. Um,
yeah, there was
oh,
a little connecting run between the fifth line run
right.
and the orchard, if that's what it was called. Just went from the fifth line from pretty much from the top of the small toe off the parking lot. You could go straight back and go down and underneath the bridge on the main run. And so
Right.
that little connecting run there, we were able to make snow on it as well. The the runs that were to the right of the left that left from the parking lot, we could make snow there.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we could do it continuously all the way. I think we could. It was just a matter of how many hoses we could run along, and every hose that you put on, you stood more chance of things freezing up. So yeah, we would like to have been able to make snow the way they do today, where they just they make piles of it and move it all over the place. We just didn't have that kind of capability.
Yeah. I was going to tell you, I was looking at a ski resort that's just north of here, and they were talking about their snowmaking system because they just recently put in one of those I forget the right terminology, basically a big water cooling tower to help reduce the temperature of the water. But they had a stat where they said they could put, and they just use acres, on 6 acres of land, they could put 5 inches of snow in 24 hours is what their system was capable of doing. So, that's another thing I just find fascinating. You look back when you guys started, and then look how the technology and the cost, and now today with these little ski resorts that are really here in Ohio aren't much bigger than what, or much smaller than what Valley Schuss or any of the ski resorts there in the Hockley Valley. And it's just incredible what, because they're all pole mounted, snow guns. It's, a lot of it's, very automated. And, as soon as it gets cold, it's amazing how fast, because, the reason I thought about it is I was reflecting back about what you were telling me about how long it took you guys, to do a run. And then I'm kind of looking at comparing that with technology today. And I'm just like, man, that's incredible how that's evolved.
Yeah, well, they've got capability of making snow when it's warmer than what we would have ever done it at, because it wasn't efficient. But now like as you say, they're automated. There's not anybody tending to the units, and they might just sort of have somebody go around and make sure that nothing's spewing water on the hill, but
Right.
everything happens so much more efficiently.
Yeah. All right. So that was kind of all my follow-up questions with a few other a few other questions. So to keep moving on then. So after you finished your I guess your first season, and I'm assuming when the season ended in the spring, did you go back to school like at that time?
Yes, yeah. So we went back in class learning, and we were there all summer long. We graduated in the fall, just before the next ski season, if you will.
Yeah. So how did you feel? So you, 'cause if I understood you right, you started school and did some classroom work, and then you took time off, and then you went and worked, and then went back to school. I was just curious, what you felt. So in other words, you started your education, then you went out, and then you kind of really did the real thing. And what was your impression of the industry at that time? Were you motivated? Like, hey, this is something I think I'm interested in, or did you like, I'm not so sure about this, or how did you feel after actually working at a resort for at a time?
Really, until the last year, I was pretty keen on the industry. I thought it was going to be my employment for life. I guess the last 2 years, that ski area was having a harder time making the bills pay, and they were cutting back on staff salary a lot, and they cut back on mine eventually. And so that's where I basically said I've got to look for some other form of employment, or else leave the Orangeville area, if you will, because the ski areas in the Hockley Valley we're all faltering to one extent or another. And I think after Valley Schuss shut down, I believe a couple of years later, Hockley Resort at that time shut down for a couple of years before some people came in and injected a bunch of money into it and
Right.
changed it around.
So when you went back for your, because I just want to kind of try to walk us through your years there. So when you went back for, I'll just call it season 2, did you end up doing a lot of the same things, or?
Yeah, although that season I worked kind of in the shoulder, so I worked up until maybe just after the Christmas break, and then I went on the road with SMI. So I drove down into Michigan, and I picked up one of the 3-wheeled machines on a trailer that Jim had purchased, and I towed it all through the Western states.
Western Canadian states, or United U.S. states?
U.S. states, all south of the border.
Okay. So it's one of the questions I had written down here. So were you working for Lloyd, or were you actually working for SMI?
I was working for SMI. SMI paid my bills and paid my salary then. For that period.
So
which would have been from about January to the end of March, and then or maybe middle of March, and then I came back to Canada.
Was that something Lloyd hooked you up with, or did he say, I got this opportunity, or SMI's got this opportunity, or how did all that work?
Yeah, I'm sure that Jim and Lloyd talked about it, and Lloyd allowed me the opportunity, if you will, to leave Valley Schuss and go on that little bit of a promotional tour. I would try to pull up to the bottom of a ski area, get a meeting with the manager, and say, I'd like to make snow on your hill tonight with this snow gun. And they would have had to have snowmaking themselves, but I don't believe there was any competitors at that time that had an airless system. So Jim was trying at that time to promote, additional snowmaking capability without having to have bigger and bigger air compressors, because running air compressors was considered to be a pretty expensive operation at that time. So if I hit the right people and the right opportunities, then I'd spend the night on their hill, make as much snow as I could for them, and probably move on the next day.
Now, was that something that SMI have like a schedule for you? Like, hey, hit this, like places to go, or how did that work?
I know that they had 2 places that had expressed interest, and I was visiting them, and they went pretty well. Everything else was just drive around, see if you can find a ski area that'll let you make snow on their hill.
So no kidding, there was no like prior coordination. You would just like pull up.
I think I only remember 2, and both of them went very well. Some of the other ones were a little bit less successful.
Yeah.
I know I went to one area. I had made a phone call to them, and I said I'd like to come and demonstrate our snowmaking machine. And when I finally got to the area, he said, well, how does it work? And I said, well, it's electric, and I'm gonna hook it up into your ski toes operation somewhere where I can get electricity, and then we run the water to it. And he says, we truck all our water here for flushing our toilets and making coffee. we don't have a source of water. And I said, oh. I said, well, I thought you said that you had snowmaking. He says, oh yeah. He says, I go across the valley and we shoot into the clouds. We shoot these pellets of saltpeter up into the clouds, and it makes it snow on our side of the valley.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So He said, I thought you were talking about having some other system for doing that. So, oh, no, sorry. So,
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. Cloud seeding.
yeah,
Um, did you did you like that aspect? Did you like the sales? I mean, was that something you ever thought about going to work for SMI and doing something like that?
no, it wasn't that successful for me.
Was it, did they
I,
bid?
I had some nice conversations with people, but
Yeah,
it wasn't going to be where I wanted to go. I, I got to play a little bit mechanically with, hooking electricity up to different sources and things like that. But I wanted something more than that.
yeah. Um, was there an issue with the electric motors, the way they're wired or whatever for Canada versus United States?
Well, they use a different voltage. The
Okay.
United States, if I remember correctly, like all of their three phase was 440,
Hmm.
and in Canada it's 550. So it is physically a different motor that's on the.
Okay.
I know that for a long time, the we had a coil or a couple of coils of wire that were all fused together in the workshop, because the first snowmaking demonstration that Lloyd made, I think he told me it was at Valley Schuss, was in order to try and justify purchasing equipment. They didn't have a transformer to power down to 440, so they brought a snowmaking gun from Michigan up to Valley Schuss, and they bought coils of aluminum wire long enough that the electrician that they worked with, Don Black was his name, said that there'd be enough power loss between the 550 and the 440 that they could operate the guns for a period of time. And it worked. They did that, but there's three phases, so they had three coils of wire, and because it had been sitting in a coil, it kind of melted the insulation and fused it all together. And so if we desperately needed a piece of wire somewhat that didn't have any insulation on it, we would go and strip it out of the coil that was there. I can't remember what gauge it was, but it was a piece of aluminum that we could use as a twist tie or strap or something that we would use. So
Right. Did Jim give you so when you I guess kind of agreed to do this and you went to Midland to pick up the equipment or the gun or whatever, do you ever remember like him sitting down with you and kind of giving you some points on how to market the gun, how to sell it versus what, like his competition and that kind of stuff?
yeah, he did for sure. And then there was a uh, there was a trade show in Wisconsin that he flew out to. I met him there, and I know that we spent at least 3 days at the trade show in Wisconsin, and then I think we went to one other area too. I think it was in Oshkosh. Yeah, Oshkosh. We went to another area together and met with the owner of that location. So during that time, he was always sort of, I mean, he wasn't a salesperson himself. He was a lawyer.
Yeah. So what years do you think this was, or what year was it? Do you remember specifically or roughly?
I think it was 1974.
Okay, so literally when it first started emerging onto the market.
Well, yeah, although he had equipment already out in Wisconsin. The one area that we went to, he had some equipment there already.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that on the
I
last.
don't, I don't know. There'd been a sort of an operating company before he fell into it. Like I kind of think that he picked it up out of a bankruptcy almost.
Okay. Did was he a natural salesman, or was he more of a like a hands-on guy building the equipment? Like, did he? In other words,
No, he didn't. I don't think he was too involved in much of the building. I think he might have been a little bit, but there was a real mechanical guy worked for him. His name was Augie. Can't remember any more than Augie.
okay.
He did a lot of stuff like in the assembly and sourcing of parts and things like that. So
Yeah. Was there any other folks like you? Like, do you think that, this was early on, that you were like one of the first guys that they kind of hired to go out to these trade shows and to the different areas to try to market the
yeah,
gun?
I was the first that they did that with, because it was a bit of an experiment. And as I said, I think they kind of decided that it didn't really pay off that well. So
But essentially, if I understood it right, Lloyd was like the representative for Southern Ontario. So did they kind of go to that format, do you think, where they gave like regions to certain people and then they went out?
there was already sales, like Jim already had salespeople.
Okay.
I'm sure it was like Lloyd. They weren't only selling SMI equipment, but they had industry connections, and they were promoting the units already. Because I know that in at least one of the locations that I went out west of North Dakota, it was from a contact like that. The rep in that area had told the person when I was going to be in the area and what I was going to be doing.
Okay.
But it was a bad winter too in a lot of the West. They had warm weather, and I remember the one ski area that I went to, I couldn't make any snow because it was like I stayed there for 4 days, and it was too warm, and it didn't look like it was going to get any better. And they only had snowmaking at the bottom of their hill. They were able to ski at the top where it was colder, so they were downloading skiers at the end of the day. And like I said, I stayed there for a while, and they said, there's no point in you staying around here anymore.
Yeah. Or what was your overall impression with the people that that you met and where you were able to make snow? Were they fairly impressed with this type of snow gun?
Yeah, a couple of them were very impressed. Yeah.
Okay. Were you involved at all? If somebody said, "Hey, I want one," like, or
No,
did people say how much, that kind of stuff? Did you?
I knew how much they were. I think they were around $3,000, and I would give them Jim's card.
Okay. Yeah. Say, talk to the boss.
Yeah.
But you think it was roughly about $3,000 for a gun back then?
Yeah, for some reason or other, I think that.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like very much now.
Well, no, it doesn't. But I was kind of just thinking the opposite back then.
Might have been a big amount. Yeah.
Yeah, because